Actually, shut her down. Good day, everybody. It's Jay from BackCountry Wrenching. Still got my Ellis Swap TJ in here. Today's video, we're going to replace the rear engine cover on my 4.8. It appears that just blowing oil out from everywhere, including the bottom of the rear seal by the looks of it. So I do have a seal kit. This is a whole new rear main cover. Genuine GM part. You don't want to mess around with that. You don't want to mess this up, because the last thing I want to do is do all this work, put it back together, and we have a leak. That would not be a fun day. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a bath. Brake cleaner kind of help get a lot of the oil off. We'll start by pulling these long ones out. And they are long. Alright. I just need a small pry bar now. And let's get this off. There we go. And we're out. So I got the rear cover off. This is what you'd call a less desirable block, because it's just got the two holes. The one you want is actually an open cavity there. And I also see that the gasket is no good at this corner. So you can see it's all pulled away from the edge. So I think that's probably where a majority of my leak is coming from. So here, see this whole, you can see this whole part of this gasket is just let loose right there. So I'm going to replace this barbell. So I'm going to start by drilling a small hole into it. So I'm going to take the screw, gonna screw it in. Oh yeah, puke that out. There we go, we're out. We are out. So that's my old barbell that I took out. That's my new one that we're gonna put in. I spent a little bit of money on this one here because I didn't want to put a cheap one in. I figured I don't want to be doing it twice, so I spent the money, got a good one. Need to start cleaning all this up, and that includes carefully removing all the old silicone that's trapped up on top of that gasket. See right now I got a big gob in that corner. I remember this corner was where I was leaking oil out. Alright, so I got my barbell, O-rings are in. Push that in. There. Tapped her in. New oil diverter is in place. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a straight tube going in. It's like a couple other holes and stuff in there, but the oil diverter's in. I want to clean these surfaces up some more. We really need to clean out these corners more. These are very important. To make sure those are free of oil, because otherwise it's not going to seal and it's just going to start leaking again. In case anybody's curious, that's the back side of that seal. So when installing it, you don't have to worry about folding the seal, because it's never going to happen. But looks like there's some damage down there. You can see the amount of play in those bolt holes. There we go. Seal is out. There's the old one. I did purchase a seal alignment kit for the front and rear seal, but I'm not going to need that because my cover already has a seal installed, so it's not going to work out. But now, of course, if you're going to go through the whole motions, you want to silicone these corners really good. I highly recommend putting silicone down on the bottom and also siliconing here on the bottom in there. But anyways, what you want to do then is put your cover in, right? And then once your cover's in place, you got your line-up tool here, and your line-up tool will sit down. I can tell you right now that I am sitting a little on the high side. There I go, I'm in now. So there, my tool is in. So then from this point here, I'd put your bottom bolts in. They'll suck it down to get to depth. Everything's all prepped, ready to install. I'm going to tell you right now, by experimenting with the old plate, with the old seal, is that there's not a lot of movement. And when I put this in and use the alignment tool, it actually sat high. So when I stick it in, I'm going to have to put these bottom bolts in first to suck it down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some silicone in here behind, underneath, and then go up top where the bolt is and all the way across the face. It's on the bottom. I'm going to use this stuff here, the right stuff. And we got 5 minutes to do it. Once we set it up, 106 inch-pounds for the bottom bolts, 18 foot-pounds for the rest. Let's hope this goes smooth. And I'm using OEM parts. Do not mess around. So as I said, I'm going to go behind here, because I don't want any issues. Clean these corners out one last time. I'm gonna be generous in those corners. I'm also gonna put a bunch right there. Alright, this is where the fun begins. Come in a little bit of an angle, and we just fit right in. No problem at all. We're gonna get these bottom bolts in first. I'm just gonna okay. So you can see when I tightened this down and pulled this down, which is what you needed because the seal was sitting up higher. So if I would have tightened these down first, I wouldn't be able to get that seal down where it is, because I found out when I put the cover on, like I said before, it sits up high until you pull these bolts down. So now the seal looks good going around. Now I'm going to torque them all down. All right, this bottom one's 106 inch-pounds. Oops. It's important to do these first because it'll suck this piece down, is which you want. So this is down to 18 foot-pounds of torque, which is not a lot. I always like to go around my bolts after I'm done to make sure they're torqued, because when I went around, I actually forgot to torque up this one. So remember, 18 foot-pounds and 106 inch-pounds. That's all taken care of. I need to get the air hammer out and hit this flap in, this pinch rail, because it's pretty tight to that bolt. And then I gotta tie up all the lines, put the flywheel back on, or the flex plate, and we will be ready to put the transmission back on. That actually went quite well. Got that bent back. So now there should be no interference when the transmission goes in. Gotta put the flex plate on now. And remember, there's an engine side, and it actually says right on it. Just gonna put some little bit of red Loctite on these threads. And these have to be torqued down in a 3-part series. So I'm going to go 15, 40, and then 74 foot-pounds. And I'm just going to use an impact on the lowest setting to get them in. Just a small dab of red Loctite is all I'm doing, because I don't want to go crazy. That one. First pass, 15 foot-pounds. Second pass. I need to lock this. I'm doing 40. All right, last pass, 74 foot-pounds. Alright, just double check everything before I go to mount the transmission back on. New engine, rear cover, torqued, new barbell, new flex plates put in. That's been flattened. Lines are out of the way. I think I'm good. One thing too for you, go to put it back in, is to make sure the torque converter is pushed all the way in, because if it's not pushed all the way in, if it came out a little bit, when you go to tighten it up, there's a good chance you might crack the pump. So now let's see how easy this is going to be to get back in. Before I start raising it up, just making sure there's going to be nothing in the way. This is where the struggle is. There's not a lot of room underneath here to get good leverage to lift this up. But I'm doing what I can to make it work. So I'm getting pretty close. Oh yeah, no man, I was able to slide that right in. Nice. Just came over to this side. Everything's looking good so far. What a mess, but transmission is bolted up and just resting on the cross member. That's what it's doing. Holy, the suffering is real. I don't want to shut her down yet. I need to go inside, feed Carmen, get something to eat, but getting closer. Transmission's bolted in, torque converter's bolted in, all the wiring on the transmission is in. Just finished putting the starter in, the little exhaust piece on that side. Still got the transfer case, exhaust, drive shafts, and belly pan. Hello. Hello, sleepyhead. How are you? How are you, Miss Carmen's? How are you doing? All the big stuff is left now. That's not going to be fun, that's for sure. Well, it's 11 o'clock at night. It's time to shut it down. Pretty much majority of the TJ's bolted back up. Today we did the oil cover, rear oil cover, flatten that flange, put the flex plate back on, put the transmission back on, put the starter back in, put one side of the exhaust in, put the transfer case back in, tidy up some wiring, hook everything back up, hook up the linkages. It's been a pretty long day. I'm going to clean up some of these tools. A lot of these tools I'm not going to need anymore. And I'm going to finish this off tomorrow. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that there isn't going to be any more leaks. Because if there is, I'm going to cry. Just going to put the rear drive shaft in. Got her all greased up. Couple joints, had to use this little needle. I'm going to tell you right now, having one of these grease gun kits with a whole bunch of different adapters is a lifesaver for sure. Well, it's a moment of truth. 2 drive shafts, rest of the exhaust, skid pan, fill it full of oil, start her up. Let's get her done. Finally, everything's back on. Belly pan, drive shafts. Just got to add the oil that I have in these coolant jugs. Like I said before, I want to put the oil in absolutely last because I want to make sure that the right stuff has set up and cured. Even though it says it's ready in 1 minute, if there's any oil or anything else that could contaminate it, that's it, it's done. So I'm going to put the oil in now, and then it's a moment of truth. We can start it up. I'm going to tell you right now, this has not been a fun job, to say the least. So I just hope I'm not going to have any more issues. There still is a few more leaks, but I'm hoping I took care of the main one. sure I put that oil cap back on. Yeah, we're good. Put the battery back on. It's one of the most important things when working on a big project is always disconnect your batteries. Well, it's the moment of truth. Let's get the garage door open. Let's fire up. Good oil pressure. Nothing's pissing out from underneath yet. Gotta love the sound of a V8. No oil drips underneath. Just gotta take it for a rip now. Make sure there's no issues. Hopefully the transmission doesn't drop out when I go to the car wash. So far, so good. Give it a good wash. Let it sit in the garage for a few hours before it goes outside. I swap it out for the JK. Well, it's the moment of truth. It's been a few hours. Look at that. Look at that. No oil on the ground. We're fixed. So happy. So happy for that, because the last thing I want to do is take that all apart again. Glad it's over with. Which means it's motherfucking beer time. I'm going to crack open this Mad Scientist IPA coming in at 6.5%. This is going to be a strong one to put some hair in your balls. Alright, motherfucking beer time, everybody. Time to shut her down. Got some fun projects coming up next. Unless something else happens between now and my next set of days off. But some things have been showing up. Going to start installing them. Going to make the JK look a little bit better. But I'm going to go get a fire going outside. Enjoy the rest of my evening. I want to thank you guys for watching. And I'm going to tell this to anybody. If you're doing an LS swap, save yourself the headache. For your own peace of mind, just change that part from the very beginning before the install, because mine started leaking from pretty much day one, and it's not leaking anymore, and just gradually gets worse and worse. So I'm glad that's fixed, and hopefully it doesn't leak anymore.